Where do I even start?
And that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you.
Many of you have been asking me for a while now to do a video about my journey of moving to London, what inspired me, how I did it, what challenges I faced, and in general, any tips I have for those who are looking to move to London. Finally, I decided to film it. But before we start, I owe you a little introduction. My name is Naila, and I was born and raised in Baku, Azerbaijan. My family and I immigrated to Toronto, Canada in 2006. That's where I went to university and studied Bachelor of Commerce, majoring in retail management. In 2011, I went on exchange to Germany to live there for 6 months and travel around Europe. Obviously, I fell in love with the vibe and how easy it is to explore different places and cultures on the weekends. That was my first encounter with Europe, and I knew I was coming back. After graduation, I went on to work for the oldest department store in North America called Hudson's Bay, and my position was literally called Chief Adventurer. True story. But in reality, I was a sales manager of the beauty department at first, and then managed the largest footwear department in Canada. In 2014, I challenged myself to go on a trip completely on my own. I picked Portugal and signed up for surfing and yoga. I remember sitting on the beach there after that yoga session and thinking to myself, I lived with my parents and did not have any major obligations other than my student loan. So I decided to just go ahead and make it happen. The day I came back to Toronto after Portugal, I started looking at options of moving to Europe and realized that as a Canadian, I can apply for a 2-year Tier 5 visa to the UK. I applied and got it within 2 weeks, which was crazy. Gave my resignation and contacted a few of my friends in London who were super generous to host me for the first 2 months. It truly was a blessing when you arrive into a new city, know nothing, and I'm so extremely grateful to my friends who helped me figure London out. London was without a doubt my go-to destination in the UK, not only because it was my favorite city during my exchange in 2011, but also because I knew I would for sure find a job in retail management. I had about $1,000 in savings, which was spent very quickly on commute to central London every day from Zone 6, which is very far, but I also had a credit card, which allowed me to survive the first little bit before I got the job. Now about my job. I started applying back in Toronto and had a Skype interview with Selfridges. I had a gut feeling about this role and decided to move to London regardless of securing a new job. Selfridges was my #1 desired company to work for, not only because I just got hooked on watching Mr. Selfridge on Netflix, but also because it's an incredible retail beast, and the bonus of it was that it's owned by Canadians. A few weeks after I arrived in London, I went to visit my best friend Diana, who was doing her MBA in Barcelona at the time. There, on March 8th, 2015, I got a call from Selfridges HR letting me know that I got the job as a department manager. That same evening, we now call it the infamous multi-culti party at Diana's University, where I first got to dance with my now husband. I had it in my mind for a while at the time that I would meet the love of my life in Europe, and that he would be an amazing dancer. And through the law of attraction, I got exactly that. We started dating the same year, and a year and a half later, we came to a conclusion while cooking dinner together that we wanted to hang out for life. And the rest is history. Back to London. It's not always all rainbows and butterflies here, you know. A big city like London can sometimes make you feel like this or that. I remember when my sister first came for a short visit, I cried the whole time she was here, and I couldn't imagine what I would do when she leaves. I was scared, lost, and lonely. But it wasn't until a few months later when I started making friends, and especially when my boyfriend finally moved to London, that I finally felt at home. Now we're back to 2015. I am at this point looking for my own place to live in. I certainly knew at that point that I wanted my own space in central London, even if that meant that I'd have to sacrifice on the square footage. Back in my search, I used to say that I was looking for an apartment, and people would look at me like I was crazy because apparently apartments in London means something very fancy and bougie. When I say the law of attraction is powerful, I mean it. There were so many people who were telling me that I should give up on my idea of living in central London and start being more realistic with the budget that I have. And the one day, a lovely human being at Selfridges called Eliza introduced me to a landlord that rented out a lower ground studio flat in Marylebone. Think Regent's Park, Baker Street, Sherlock Holmes Museum. With an element of luck, I scored a sweet studio for a fraction of what an average person would pay for a studio in London. Of course, such a gift comes with its own challenges. Even though I've never seen any, I've certainly heard them in my walls, but found a solution. Fast forward to 2016 and I start my first vlog on my birthday in Barcelona. Parallel to that, I run 2 Instagram accounts, one chief adventurer and the other one dedicated to my love of my drone called Drone Lovin'. And I become even more obsessed with social media and filming in general. As for my job in retail, I was not really into this whole class system within the British retail management structure, and it was just time for me to move on. So it's no surprise that when the article about the best job in the world popped up in my Facebook feed, I applied. May 2016, I received a message on Instagram from Wow Air, which by the way is located right here, telling me that I'm one of the 4 people that will get to explore 4 different destinations around the world this summer as a Snap traveler, meaning I will Snapchat for their company. I Snapchatted my way through summer 2016, and then a friend of mine from Baku who works at YouTube in London told me about this job opportunity at YouTube. So this is how that happened. I genuinely think that by the time it came to my interview with YouTube, I had so much to offer in terms of my cross-functional experience of selling, managing, and adventuring out in the world that I was a perfect fit for the YouTube creator events team. Best advice I can give someone moving to London? Keep searching for those tiny little studios in central London that can work with your budget, especially if you're only here for 2 years. Make it worth it. Don't waste 3 hours of your day on commute. The best thing that I own in London? That's right, it's my folding Dayhon bike that I actually brought with me from Toronto. I'm in short cycling distance from almost everything in central London. I very rarely have to take the tube, and I would never give it up for anything. But going back to Toronto, Richmond Hill, Ontario, where I was exchanging my 1,000 Canadian dollars for 500 pounds at the Bank of Montreal, the teller looked at me with such amazement in her eyes, saying how she wishes she could have the balls to do the same and move across the world by herself. There was only one thing I could say.